Looks like we managed to stay in the game. Yeah, thanks to your help, Edgeworth. That chief. He's something else, eh, pals? Detective Gumshoe! I'm not a detective anymore. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, don't worry. I've already decided where to work now. At your office! My office? Sure. I'll take the place of that top naughty girl you used to work with. Could you mean Maya? Still, looks like we're all out of moves now. Chief Gant's done it again! How is it he always gets the upper hand? It's not fair he has the right to refuse to testify. Huh. Settle down, Wright. Remember what the judge said. But, Chief! That is not a right to be casually invoked. There are certain risks to be considered. Risks? What did he mean by that? It's simple. If the chief refuses to testify, the opposite also holds true. Who's saying this? I'm going to assume it's Emma. You mean he forfeits his right to say anything too? Hey! It's Emma! Emma! Are you okay? Yeah, when I came to, I was in the medical office. I've been listening to the trial from the gallery. So she heard everything that's been going on. Emma? I'm sorry for what I said before. No, don't be. It was the truth. You know, it's funny. I almost feel somehow relieved. Relieved? Yeah. Now I finally know what really happened. To think that all this time, my sister was being blackmailed by that terrible man. And she did it all just to protect me. Ever since her appointment as chief prosecutor, everyone who knew her said she changed. Perhaps it was easier that way for her. What do you mean? What do you think I mean? To follow Chief Gant's orders. She must have shut herself up deep inside to force herself to do anything and everything the chief told her to do. That must be why she became so cold. It was all my fault. It's all because I murdered Mr. Marshall. Hey, don't go blaming yourself now! If you want to blame anyone, blame society, pal! Chief Gant maybe will fool everyone else with his forgery, but he can't fool my memory. I remember now. I knocked Mr. Marshall into that armor. I see. Well, he'd better get back. We'd better get back. It's time for the final act. Emma, why don't you wait? No, I'm going with you. Ugh. I want to be there. When Lana tells the truth. Let's go, Wright. It's time to end this. Oh. Well, I wasn't expecting it to just be an immediate end there. I was expecting to be brought into the next thing immediately. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and save and we can just continue onward. Now then, will the defendant, Miss Lana Skye, please take the stand? Miss Lana Skye, you are the chief prosecutor. I'm sure you're aware of what is required of you. But Mr. Edgeworth, you already know everything. you know all that I've done these past 2 years. Please provide the court with your testimony, Miss Sky. And remember, you are under oath. We want to hear the truth. Of course, the truth. Lana! No matter what happens, I'll always be your sister! Now then, your testimony, if you will. First, tell us about your relationship with Chief Gant. Everything hinges on your testimony. You're the only chance we have to get Gant! Okay. Well, I mean, considering that this is a new subsection, I'm willing to bet I get all my tries back. But who's to say that that will really be too helpful? Hopefully it is. I worked alongside Gant for years. There's no truth to this blackmail theory. I fabricated the evidence 2 years ago all by myself. When I found Prosecutor Marshall's body, I rearranged the crime scene. My only motivation was to get Dark convicted. It had nothing to do with Emma. Are you sure about this testimony? Your Honor, I'm confessing to a capital offense. Of course I'm sure. But Lana! If this is true, then that means Chief Gant has nothing to do with this. That's what I've been telling you from the beginning. Please, Mr. Wright, you've gotta help her. She's sacrificing herself because of me. But what if she's telling the truth? She's not. I know my own sister. Whenever she speaks stiffly like that, she's hiding something inside. Deep down, she's really screaming in agony. Yeah. This is no time to start second-guessing myself. The defense may now begin its cross-examination. You know what a weird thing is that I've noticed? Is that even though Phoenix's blue text is generally supposed to be to himself, I've noticed several times in this case that he's still talking to Emma. Which is weird, but okay. Okay, and yeah, my tries refilled. That's good. I worked alongside Gant. There's no truth. I fabricated it 2 years ago. When I found Marshall's body, I rearranged the crime scene. My only motivation was to get Dark convicted. Which, I mean... kind of weird with the vase, but whatever. Let's just press everything that we have and go from there. How many years exactly? Ever since I made senior detective. Let's see, I was 24 then. So that would be 5 years. Detective Gant and Detective Sky were legendary partners. I personally saw them testify in numerous cases. She must have been good coming from the same school as Mia. Damon Gant was a respectable detective. That's why. There's no truth to this blackmail theory, which I think might be... well, I mean, there's plenty of cases where we might be able to get her for a lie or contradiction, but let's, again, just press everything for now. But think about it, Miss Sky. You didn't murder Detective Goodman. You told me as much yesterday in jail. You still don't get it, do you, Mr. Wright? Any testimony you cannot present in court is as useless as idle gossip. Duh! I stabbed Detective Goodman with a knife. And I fabricated the evidence 2 years ago. Did you do so to help your sister? Joe Dark was a serial killer. My sister almost became his last victim that day. I didn't want that incident to ruin her life. But what she did was justifiable self-defense. She wouldn't have been charged with anything. That's not the point. She was traumatized that day, all because of that creep. That's why I couldn't forgive him. Lana. So that's why you fabricated the evidence 2 years ago. I found prosecutor... okay, so... yeah, that didn't change anything. When I found Marshall's body, I rearranged the crime scene. What still gets me is that there's only blood on Lana's side, but he was stabbed with the suit of armor on Gant's side. That's still bothering me. You say you did this all by yourself? Yes. Would you mind telling us what you found when you arrived at the crime scene? It seems I was the first person to discover the scene. The broken prosecutor award knife was stuck in the victim's body. What?! But Prosecutor Marshall died from an unfortunate accident! That's only a situation you dreamed was possible. Ugh! The reality is, it wasn't my sister who took the prosecutor's life. Fantasize all you want, Mr. Wright, but I'll never change this statement. You mean, Prosecutor Marshall wound up being killed by Dark? Something like that. If that is so, what happened to the other murder weapon? Dark was carrying a switchblade knife. Oh. That was lying on the floor, a little distance away. It was probably knocked away in the struggle. That's not how it went down! She's trying to cover up her lies with more lies! All just to protect me. So when you found the scene like this, what did you do? After all, this is what everything boils down to. Yes. Ah, okay, so this is the point where it's changed. I broke off the tip of Dark's knife, planted it inside the wound, then moved the body. Why would you do that before moving the body when it could be, you know, knocked out? You planted the tip of Dark's knife in the wound, and then you moved the body? But why? Why would you do that? You of all people should know, Edgeworth. You've always had a good head on your shoulders. My head isn't that bad, but maybe I ought to ask for the sake of the others. Okay, so there's two things here that we could potentially ask. Why did you plant the knife, and why did you move the body? Let's go with the body. When you showed up on the scene, where exactly was the victim's body? It was where you deduced it was, by Chief Gant's desk. But the body was found by your desk. Why did you move it there? The reason for that is simple. Let's have the witness explain this in more detail. The reason Miss Sky moved the body. The pieces of the jar that... Man, we're getting a lot of stuff here. Okay, so we have that. The pieces of the jar that shattered during the events threatened my plan. Interesting. I'm gonna go back to this, though. So why did she plant the knife? Just so that way we have all of the information available. But why did you do that? Come now, Mr. Wright. Even you should be able to figure it out. Very well. Let's add this to the witness's testimony. The reason Miss Sky fabricated the knife. Oh, so both of them? Oh. Oh, that complicates matters tremendously. So her testimony can change based on what I have here. I knew the tip of the weapon found buried in the body would be all the proof we needed. But now the jar is gone. Okay, let's go back to the jar thing first. Why did you move the body? That's interesting, the fact that I don't get both of those there. The pieces of the jar that shattered during the events threatened my plans. Let's see. Yeah, so these things they change. That's weird. Okay, but this is interesting. Why is the jar that? And I get the feeling this is it. But let's see what she has to say. Pieces of the jar? You mean... Yes, that wretched jar you showed us earlier. In order to show that Dark committed the crime, I felt it would be more expedient to move the body. So, when you first found the body, the jar was already... Of course, it had been shattered to pieces. If you looked at the crime scene, it would be clear right away what happened. Neil Marshall was dead, and Dark was lying unconscious. In other words, the jar must have been broken during their struggle. I see. What's the matter, Emma? Apparently, the jar shattered at the time the crime was committed. But I have a feeling there's more to it than that. There must be a contradiction here somewhere. Anyway, I committed this fabrication completely alone. Okay, and that's what has me convinced that this is a fake. Because all of these things, all of these blood prints, they were all on different pieces. And the name Emma was spelled out as if it were whole. The only other thing would be the piece of cloth here. We haven't had any use for this yet. So this might be a way to actually catch Lana in a contradiction. Let's get this. We'll check the knife part. And we'll go from there. So you rearranged the crime scene. Are you sure you didn't do this to keep Emma from looking like the murderer? How many times do I have to tell you, Mr. Wright? Emma didn't do it. Period. Are you so desperate to hide that fact? You're willing to risk the death sentence? She's lying! She did it so I wouldn't be blamed for what happened! In any case, as a prosecutor, what I've done is unpardonable. There's nothing I can do to make up for my actions. Mr. Wright! My sister's lying! Looks like she's determined to protect you to the end. She insists she fabricated the evidence by herself. There's no way she could have done it alone! I've got to get Lana to talk more. If she's lying, then she's bound to slip up and make a contradiction. Okay. So let's press the knife part. Okay, so let's go with the information on the knife. I knew the tip of the weapon found buried in his body would be all the proof we needed. According to your testimony, Prosecutor Marshall's broken knife was the murder weapon, right? Yes, and leaving it at that might point the blame away from Dark. I felt the most effective way was to get him convicted. I felt the most effective way to get him convicted would be by having the tip of his knife found inside the victim's body. So you buried it inside the victim's stab wound? Yes. Because I hated Dark for what he did. Okay. So yeah, nothing more with that, and there doesn't seem to be anything inherently wrong with it. So yeah, moving the body. And it has to be the jar. The pieces of the jar were shattered, would have threatened the plan. So let's see. In order to show that Dark committed the crime, it felt more expedient to move the body. The jar was already shattered. Neil Marshall was dead. The jar broke in the struggle. And that has to be the contradiction. It's gotta be the jar itself, right? Because Emma is written on it, but it would have been on the shattered parts. Okay, well, first of all, let me go ahead and just make a save state. Okay, so we can get back to this point if need be. So yeah, I think if I have to guess, I would say it's either the jar or the piece of cloth. The cloth, I think, at least points to Emma for this. But I don't think that necessarily contradicts anything. It's gotta be the jar, because the way that the blood marks are just doesn't match with what they should be. Miss Sky, I understand how you feel. You committed that crime 2 years ago to protect your sister. You mean the forgery at the scene where Neil Marshall was murdered? If that truth were to be exposed now, the past 2 years of your life will have been in vain. Even so, I'm compelled to bring everyone's attention a significant contradiction within your testimony! A contradiction in my testimony? You testified, and I quote, "The pieces of the jar that shattered during the events threatened my plan." That's right. Do you have a problem with that? It's a simple oversight, really. You see, a message was written on this jar with the victim's blood. Yes, the prosecutor must have written it in his final moments. Exactly so. And this is where the contradiction lies. In order for the victim to be able to write his message on the jar, it must not yet have been broken before he died. So the jar was real? Hold on, the jar was real. Wait. Before we go onward, what? So he's saying that Neil wrote the message in blood. Either it's still fake and we're still trying to get to that, or... Okay, this is interesting. Well, let's keep going. He couldn't have written Emma's name on a shattered jar! Order! Order! Your Honor, it would appear more information is needed in regard to this jar and its bloody message. We may be missing something critical here. Something critical? Chief Prosecutor, it seems you're as in the dark as we are about the truth towards which we're headed. What? Just tell us exactly what you saw. We'll piece together the information to arrive at the truth. Very well. The witness may now continue her testimony. Okay, jar and the message. I immediately noticed the blood traces on the jar, but it was dark in the room, and I didn't have time to check it out. To be safe, I wiped away the blood. The fragments were large, so I'm sure I got them all. All I could think about was wiping them clean before they were discovered. You mean you were the one who wiped away the message in blood? I wasn't chief prosecutor at the time. She didn't think Dark was the real murderer. That's why she tried to erase the real evidence. Very well. The defense may now begin its cross-examination. Okay. But there's still a very noticeable line piece. Blood traces on the jar, but it was dark and I didn't have time. To be safe, I wiped away the blood. Huh. Okay. Well, let's press everything. So the jar was already broken. It's a miracle that thing hadn't broken earlier. It certainly looks as feeble as the defense's case. But not as feeble as the judge's judgment. You were an ace detective who never missed a detail. Do you really expect us to believe you didn't investigate what was written on the jar pieces? Normally I would have. But it was dark and I didn't have time. So you didn't know your sister's name was written on the jar? No. If I had known, I would have gathered all the pieces and ground them to dust. Well, that helps my case. Lana, you do that for me? It seems you two might make up yet. Anyway, I just barely had enough time to move the body as it was. If someone happened upon the scene, you'd lose your chance to erase the evidence. You must have been in a hurry. I was. I knew I had to destroy the evidence before anyone came. This is rather shocking. To be safe, I wiped away the blood. I'm afraid this action of yours reveals what really happened. What do you mean? If you really thought Dark killed Prosecutor Marshall, you wouldn't have wiped away the blood. What else could I have done in that situation? Lana, I only had a few moments. There wasn't enough time for me to do anything else but gather up the pieces. Fragments were large, so I'm sure I got them all. But how could you see with the power out? It should have been pitch black in that office. A detective is always prepared, Mr. Wright. Even now, I always carry a pocket light and a camera with me. Even I carry a bottle of emergency luminol wherever I go. I never miss anything. I got every last piece. Except the one in Gant's safe, apparently. So you illegally rearranged the crime scene. Yes. I don't have any excuse for my actions. I'm so sorry, Lana. I didn't know. I've treated you so badly all this time. It's not too late. There's still plenty of time to make up. After we've gotten to the bottom of this incident. No doubt this day will leave a permanent stain on the history of the prosecutor's office. More contradictions have surfaced in her testimony. Your sister's really putting up a fight. She must really care about you. Still, she's not doing this the right way. I think I finally figured out the contradictions in her testimony. There's one final possibility that might turn everything around. Okay. To be safe, I wiped away. The fragments were large, so I'm sure I got them all. So nothing changes, so anything that I currently have is a contradiction. Which again, leaves me to the jar. The final fragment was found in Chief Gant's safe, and it has the major line piece here. If she was so thorough, she wouldn't have missed that. Miss Sky, I believe this jar conceals a truth even you were unaware of. What? We found the final piece of this jar in Chief Gant's safe. In the Chief's safe? But how? I knew it! She really didn't know! There's something even more disturbing about that final piece. There was still blood on it. But the witness just testified that she gathered every last piece and wiped the blood off of them. Yes, which leaves us with only one explanation. On the night Prosecutor Marshall was murdered, You were not the first one to show up on the scene! Chief Gant got there before you! But couldn't the defendant have simply missed a piece? I'm afraid that's unlikely. The pieces are too big for anyone to miss, let alone an ace detective. That may well be, but everyone makes mistakes. Even I once wasted an entire day looking for my dentures. They were in my mouth all along. Can you believe that? Have you forgotten, Your Honor? When this witness arrived at the scene, the jar was already broken. Oh, that. There's no way a name could have been written on a shattered jar. Another person discovered the scene prior to the witness. I hope you're not implying this person was Chief Gant. At the time, he was looking for Dark downstairs. Besides, even if he was there first, what would he do with the jar? The question is, if he did arrive there first, why did he hide that fact for 2 years? Well, Your Honor, can you answer us that? Yeah! No! Wait. I'm not the one on trial here. Damon Gant arrived at the crime scene prior to the witness. He proceeded to break the jar and purposefully hid one of the broken pieces. Question: what is this action called? Fabrication of evidence. But why would Chief Gant do that? In light of what happened afterwards, isn't it clear? What happened afterwards? Discovering the scene, Lana Skye believed her sister Emma killed the victim. Determined to help her sister, she sought Gant's aid. Lending her his aid, Gant helped her create evidence that incriminated Dark, sparing Emma. And therein lies the reason. The reason why Miss Skye became the Chief's puppet! No! I did it on my own! Please, sis! Stop trying to protect the Chief! I can't watch you suffer anymore for my sake! No! You didn't! It wasn't you, Emma! You didn't kill anyone! Don't believe anything Mr. Wright says! Defense attorneys make up the most foul lies to defend their clients! Foul lies? Imagine that, coming from my own client! I guess you do seem the type who likes to twist the truth. Wait a minute. What if we're still smack dab in the middle of Gant's trap? Is something wrong, Mr. Wright? Lana, maybe Wright after all. What do you mean, Wright? So you do tell foul lies then, Mr. Wright? Miss Skye, please testify once more. But if evidence was fabricated behind your back, then Emma's accidental killing of Prosecutor Marshall might also be a lie. But I do remember knocking over Mr. Marshall. Miss Skye, if you will. I can't. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. This cross-examination may not change a thing. However, there is a possibility that it will if you tell the truth. Very well. I'll testify about what I really saw. All right, the witness may testify once more for the final time.